it's funny. I actually thought I was going to go get an MBA, and I got rejected because Lord knows I still don't know geometry to this day. But when I got rejected, I called a mentor in Chicago. And she does what I do. She has a solo practice, a nonprofit, and other companies as well. And I'm like, hey, what? I feel like I need more business background. I don't know what I'm doing. She's like, Kristina, you are a boss now. Hire someone with an MBA. And I'm like, all right, that makes sense. I don't actually have to do so. That I think.
Hello and welcome to NextOppSocial. We are your hosts, Richelle Wright, Joanne Buford, and Nina Payne. We believe entrepreneurship is empowerment, and we are committed to the development and progress of entrepreneurs, providing you with the information you need to build thriving businesses. So today we are very pleased to welcome Kristina T. Wilson. Kristina is the principal attorney for her own practice, the law offices of Kristina T. Wilson, which primarily serves entertainment, sports, and corporate clients in transactional matters. So welcome, Kristina. We're super excited to have you here at NextOppSocial. So let's dive in. Tell us about yourself, your background, and your relationship with entrepreneurship.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna try to make the long story short, but I was born and raised in the city of Detroit. Um, Pretty much, I went to King High School, so go Crusaders, and then went and majored in sports management. Went to Bowling Green State University, and then went to Loyola University School of Law, Chicago School of Law. And from there, went back to Detroit and did a fellowship called Challenge Detroit. It gave me the opportunity to come back home, use my business and legal skills that I gained away from school, worked for Penske Corporation in the Chevrolet Detroit Belle Isle Grand Prix. And from there, they didn't renew my contract after the fellowship. And that was about 2015. So I'm like, okay, I've applied to all these jobs. I went to law school in another state. It's still kind of like a recession, still, especially when it comes to lawyers, they're not hiring people. So I'm like, what am I going to do? Am I going to sit on my behind and pray that somebody gives me a job, or am I going to create my own? So, in an unprecedented move, only a year out of law school, I started my own law firm. Pretty much saying that one or two things were going to happen. Either I was going to get enough clients that a firm would want to hire me, or I get enough clients and I won't need to work for anybody else. So that was what I did. So I started my law firm, and it turns out it's a lot of music clients in Detroit. And so utilized a lot of my resources from high school, college, and law school of people who were still in Detroit who needed a lawyer, and pretty much grew from there. In 2016, I moved to Los Angeles, figuring that it's a wider pool of people in entertainment, and maintained both firms once I passed the bar. And now I have two locations. I have the Detroit location and the Los Angeles location, and have served over 125 clients in the last almost 6 years.
That's awesome.
And I've grown more so from the music side. I started in music, but now I have clients in tech, hair, fashion, um, all forms of entertainment, television, film, music. I have some athletes, both traditional and non-traditional, sports agencies, and all forms of business. And now I'm also getting into the cannabis space.
Very
So
cool.
both states have cannabis, but until it's federally legal, so not too much I'm able to do, but advise clients. But it's been a crazy ride because entrepreneurship was not the goal. It kind of fell into my lap, and it's probably been the best decision I've made ever since then. And now I've added two new businesses in 2021. One is a nonprofit organization called Dual Threat Preparatory Academy, which will educate student athletes on pretty much everything outside of their sport that they need to know. So mental health, business, marketing, sexual harassment, and what not to do, and pretty much how to survive being a student athlete on a high school, college, and possibly the professional level. And
Okay.
then I also have UR Prospects LLC, which is a Michigan-based tech company, which is a multi-platform application that allows student athletes to connect with college recruiters more efficiently. So we're mostly targeting underrepresented players, like those 3, 4 stars, maybe even 2-star players that don't always have the opportunities. Because the 5-star, upper 4 stars, they're going to get recruited anyway. But when you look at the students who suffered because of COVID and not being able to compete, it was those ones that they don't have the eyes of the recruiters. They don't, it's harder to, upload highlights online and just try to find the right person to look at them. So we want to combine everything that we've noticed, help Black and brown inner city students, because those are the ones that typically struggle the most getting recruited. Yeah, I'm a former student athlete, couldn't get recruited to save my life, even though I was one of the top runners in the state in the high hurdles. And they just didn't believe that we had the GPAs because I came from the Detroit public school system. So this is my way of being able to give back and help. And so those are my companies and how I help people. I help people in every single way that I'm an entrepreneur. So I guess I'm a social entrepreneur.
Yeah, love it.
Yes. That's a lot. I just have a couple questions, and we're gonna this is just organic. We're just gonna throw them at you, and we'll get into it. But this is 6 years running, right, for being in as a law firm with 2 locations. So
September
are
20th.
right? Are you still solo, or are you hiring people now? Like, how are you handling all of the business coming towards your way, not only from your law practice, but also from the other endeavors?
So I am still a solo attorney. I am contemplating expanding, but it's a little tougher because it's like with the law firm, it's more of a sink or swim type situation. And I started as a solo practice because I was taking on all the risk myself. So I'm like, if I fail, the only person who loses their livelihood is me, and I can go and get a job at a law firm or something like that. So now, like, it took about 4.5, 5 years to actually start to see a steady clientele of clients that aren't just one time, I need this contract reviewed and they're done. But now I have a steady stream of clients that constantly come to me. I actually just gotten multiple retainer clients that pay me ahead of time to do legal work. And so now I have clients that I'm in charge of their entire companies. All of every contract that comes through, I'm in charge of. I do their trademarks, their copyrights. I'm in charge of, like, from the beginning, even forming their businesses. And with that, now it's starting to get to the point where, okay, might need an assistant, maybe a paralegal, and then start to grow from there. But it actually looks like my passion, even though I'm very, very good at law, it probably would be more of an optional thing as I go forward, because I can always practice law. But being CEO of a nonprofit and CEO of a tech company and being able to grow those and really help people, and like I said, my background is in sports management. I kind of fell into the entertainment space, but that's where I always wanted to be. So having those companies and then always being able to have a solo practice and be like, okay, I can take on clients when I feel like it. That'll probably be how I manage those. But who knows? Like, my clients they'll probably be really upset if I'm like, you know what, I'm done practicing law. So I'm still kind of debating where I want my firm to go, especially since it's been 6 years. It is now really actually taking off financially, and being in the Black, I didn't realize how great of a feeling it would be to look at your tax returns and look at it and you're like, oh, I got to come up with some deductions because I'm actually in the Black this year.
Absolutely.
I like maybe a few more conferences and with 2020, a lot of stuff was canceled. So normal conferences, and then I didn't have to take the bar anymore. So it's like all of these things, I'm finally operating in the Black for both locations, for both California and Michigan. So I'm like, oh,
congratulations.
Now it's time to actually do some more growing and get some more expenses.
Absolutely.
So Kristina, when we first met, what really caught my attention, I think I've shared this with you, was your business acumen, right? having come from the financial services industry and now working B2B, partnering and working with attorneys are par for the course. And I've met so many of them that are proficient at the law, but just sucked as entrepreneurs, like no business acumen whatsoever, right? And that's what really impressed me. And now I get a little bit more in terms of that backstory and why you were able to build a practice, or you felt, I guess, empowered or confident enough to do it. 'Cause most just aren't. I think you already know that. But I'm curious to know, I mean, as you were making the transition from being a legal practitioner to saying, look, I'm going to set up my own practice. I'm going to go out here, build a brand and grow a business. What did some of those growing pains look like? Like, what were some of the tough lessons you had to overcome or things you had to learn while you were making that transition?
So what was so crazy about it was like, one, you don't have a lot of support initially when you're an entrepreneur, especially when you come straight out of law school, have one technical year of experience. But a lot of people don't realize I was doing internships all through law school. I've seen hundreds of contracts before I even graduated. So I knew exactly what to do. I took the appropriate coursework because I knew what I wanted to do when I went to law school. So I was ready to do it. And then also my background in sports management, even though sports management, my degree says I have a degree in education and human development. Sports management is a business degree with more of a sports focus. So I already had the management classes. I took accounting, finance, economics. I knew how to run a business. And it's really weird because people who I went to church with and people I grew up with, they always saw me as an entrepreneur. And I never, you're like, no, I'm gonna go get this 6-figure check, these benefits, and buy me a house and retire. Like that's what I had in my mind when I graduated law school. You couldn't have told me I would be an entrepreneur, but I was selling candy. I would go to Costco, buy candy boxes and sell them for $1 in school just to be able to pay for certain things because that's what you did in high school. And then I was part of Business Professionals of America. I was a part of the Academy of Finance. So I went to Go Lightly Career Technical Center while I was in high school. So I always had the business background and it never clicked to me that this could be my life. Like I took entrepreneurship classes and did like actual competitions in BPA to do entrepreneurship and never even thought like, okay, I'm gonna run a business. So my confidence level came from the work that I put in pretty much my whole life. I knew what I could do. I knew my skills. I knew how to review contracts, and I also have no problem asking for help. So I joined the Black Entertainment Sports Lawyers Association, BESLA. I'm still a member to this day. I'm part of their Young Lawyers division and everything. I went there and met so many senior attorneys in entertainment. And I have a mentor. She now is a lawyer for Netflix, but she's been mentoring me since I was a pup in law school. Having those right people around that, okay, if I don't know how this contract goes, I don't know how to work with these type of clients, I've never done this before, let me call my mentors, let me talk to people. And then it's so funny, one of my mentors, the mentor from Netflix, she's from Detroit. Another mentor I have, he's a partner at a law firm in Chicago, like equity partner of one of the largest law firms in the country. He also has books, game shows, patents, TV, like he's done everything, right? He's from Detroit. Like being from Detroit has been a connector to a lot of people in my background because as soon as they mention they're from Detroit, I'm like, oh, bet. Go walk up to them, we introduce ourselves, we talk, and next thing you know, I have a person in my life for life and they're doing big things. So I've never been shy of calling somebody like, hey, I've never done this before. I don't know what I'm doing. I need your help. Because my clients don't know that I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
Well, they're not watching. No.
He needs to be able to tell me so I can go to the client like, this is what this means. This is how and I'll never forget, like, if I didn't have the mentorship, I wouldn't be able to do what I did, especially as young as I was. And now it turns out I'm that mentor. I have law students that come to me, people who want to go to college and go to law school. I've always wanted to give back. So I started doing that from the beginning. I sit on the board of All for One, which is a nonprofit in Detroit. I sit on multiple nonprofits, LA Blue Chip Basketball Academy here in Los Angeles. I'm the president of the board. Like, giving back to people, that's been like, I feel like my purpose. So it's been like combining like my knowledge and combining my purpose. That's how I ended up creating 2 more additional companies, and not being afraid to do it, because if I feel like this is what I'm called to do and what I've been doing my whole life, I'm confident enough to do it. And then the things I don't know now, it's funny, I actually thought I was going to go get an MBA, and I got rejected because Lord knows I still don't know geometry to this day. But when I got rejected, I called a mentor in Chicago. And she does what I do. She has a solo practice, a nonprofit, and other companies as well. And I'm like, hey, I feel like I need more business background. I don't know what I'm doing. She's like, Kristina, you are a boss now. Hire someone with an MBA. And I'm like, all right, that makes sense. I don't actually have to do. So that, I think you asked about a struggle and a growing pain, understanding that I don't need to know everything, because as a solo practitioner, I do the accounting, I get the clients, I do the marketing, I do everything because it's my practice. But now having companies in which, one, I am not a technician. I literally called one of my clients who was a close friend of mine from college when I had the idea. I'm like, you're a software engineer. Is this possible? He's like, yes. I'm like, do you want 50% of it? Like, because I'm like, I don't know the tech space, but I do know the legal space. I know athletics. I know how business works. I know the stuff that you don't. You know the stuff I don't. And he's a business owner as well. But he's like, Kristina, that's why he hires me to do the legal, because I could talk to him, his eyes would glaze over. He's like, no, I don't know that. Same thing when he starts talking about coding. I'm like, yep, no. So now it's like, we actually, with our tech company, we just hired like our business team. So I got someone with a background in accounting and have a master's in finance and things of that nature. I have someone who's been in sales on a high level. I have someone who is great at tech and great at marketing. And these people, like, I don't have to do it all anymore. So that was my biggest growing pain. And now with a nonprofit, I have professional athletes. I have people who I've connected with throughout entertainment, because I've worked with some big people and been able to connect and make friends. They're telling me, how do I pitch these to other millionaire people who are professional athletes? Like, I have to understand that I do not know everything, and be willing to learn at every single turn, no matter how long I've been in the game. And it's really funny because in my head, I'm still that first or second year person straight out of law school. But on paper, I've been practicing law for 7 years. I'm like, whew, that's weird. Like, I'm a mid-level attorney at any other place, but I'm a partner at my own firm. I did it. So it's just kind of getting out of your own way, understanding that you will never in a million years know everything when it comes to business. So as long as you're willing to learn and grow, and then always pass that information on to those coming behind you, like, it's enough clients to go around. So if a young lawyer who's like, Kristina, I want to start my own firm, I'm like, hey, here's what happens when you do. Take this and roll with it if you want to. I have no problem with that, because at the end of the day, as good as I am, I'm not going to do this forever. So I have no problem, passing on information to the ones that come behind me.
Seeing it, like, you just drop bars.
So many.
You drop
So many.
some real gems here. I'm a boss now. Hire someone who's an MBA. You're a boss now. That, Shelly already know what I'm thinking.
Right. pull that clip.
Pull that clip. That was phenomenal.
But it's such a reality, though, that people understand. Like, you actually have the power to hire people. And I actually talked to one of my friends who is my marketing, my CMO, and I was like, what do you do when you, like, what do CEOs do? Because I'm like, I didn't delegated everything to everybody else. He's like, Kristina, you the captain of the ship. You the face of the organization. At some point, you are the one that manages and makes sure that everybody else does their job, which is so weird to me, because I'm usually the one doing everything. So once he's like, you're the boss. And I'm like, all right. And I've had multiple people finally click it in my head that at one point or another, I will be the boss. And what that means isn't just doing everything yourself. It means being able to manage a team to make sure that they're doing their best. And then eventually they'll be bosses of somebody. And then I can sit up at the pit house, come down every once in a while, and then go back up there. But that's the dream, is to be able to have such successful businesses that can run with or without me.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of people forget that goal because they're so caught up in, I have to do everything, that they forget eventually the goal is to pass this down to someone else.
So while I was trying to get located and situated, I'm listening to the conversation about Detroit and that brand that we take with us everywhere we go. And, you know, having visited Los Angeles, I mean, I love Los Angeles. I do. I still have conniptions about earthquakes, but aside from that, I love Los Angeles. Every time I go there, I'm sad to leave. But I mean, anywhere, New York, you know, Miami, doesn't matter where we go, Detroiters, we recognize each other and we see each other. And I firmly believe, I just believe this, you know, people say if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. I believe if you can make it in Detroit, you can make it anywhere. And that's why we succeed everywhere we go, right? I don't see too many people from New York necessarily coming to Detroit and getting it in. At least not getting it from, and getting it in from the dirt. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't see people from Los Angeles coming to Detroit and getting it from the dirt and succeeding. I just don't see it. But when I look out and I visit other places, I see Detroiters out there crushing it everywhere we go. And, you know, I'm sorry, I had to go there, right? I'm Detroit zone all the time. But I wanted to know, for you being a Detroiter, it's in your DNA, and heading out to Los Angeles, I know I overheard some discussion. What did that transition look like? You know, how do you think being a Detroiter served you? Or to be transparent with you, how do you think it, maybe it did serve you in certain situations?
Okay, so I'm gonna put this on the record. I did not just grow up in Detroit. I grew up Detroit proper. Like, I grew up Joy Road, Livernois, 7 Mile Evergreen. Like, I'm not outskirts of Detroit. I'm not near Southfield. I'm not near any suburb. I was in there. So,
yeah.
So when I look back at the way I had to grow up and the background that I have, like, I'm the first one to graduate from high school from my immediate family. So it's like, a lot of people don't understand what that means and what that to get out. So it's just like, as much as I love my city, outside of how cold it is, like, if it was a little warmer, maybe I could have stayed home, but I was not built for negative 15 degrees. There were times I was contemplating life, sitting near that river, because I worked at the Renaissance Center, and I remember sitting in my car like, this, there's more to life than this. This is cold.
Frozen river.
Yeah.
Oh, that river, boy. I was like, no. Like, even Chicago had its moments, but Detroit is something about that cold. I don't know what it is. I'm not bred for it. I'm a summer baby. I couldn't do it. But Detroit gave me confidence because, like you said, I felt like if I can get out and get out of the circumstances was able to go to college despite what people said. Like, that, I think it was like a 30% graduation rate from a DPS school when I graduated. Yep. So it was like the likelihood of me getting out of high school was slim, and then going to college. And I ain't gonna lie to you, I felt like the DPS system kind of failed me when I graduated, because I didn't feel prepared for college. Even though I went to what you call a premier high school, I still was like, I'm not smart enough to go to college. So I'm just I got in, I got a full ride, and it was an academic scholarship. Thank you, Lord. But when I got to college and I got a 4.0 my first semester, I was like, oh, I can do this. Okay. So it's kind of a confidence and an arrogance that comes from being from Detroit, because of all the stuff I had to do to get to where I was. There's no one that could tell me anything. So when I got to Los Angeles, that arrogance kind of got me in trouble with the bar. Did underestimate how badly and crazy that thing was. But when it came to, I wasn't getting scammed for apartments, because I'm like, I don't trust nobody. Like, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but Detroit people, we don't know. We look at you like, No.
Uh-huh.
That don't even sound right. So when like I didn't get con for apartments, I was able to hustle and get contract work off my Michigan license until I passed the California bar. I was able to, like, my spidey senses start tingling when it's time for me to get out of a situation and get where I need to go. It's like, oh, it's a little dark outside. Yeah. Because in Detroit, you know exactly where you don't need to be after dark.
Yep.
In
Yep.
LA, it's not as cut and dry. All the neighborhoods, even the hood, kind of look really nice. So like,
Yeah.
oh no. And then I hear something like, oh, my spidey sense is tingling. It's time for me to go. Like, but the number one thing I can say that being from Detroit did for me moving to Los Angeles was, and I think Big Sean touched on it before in the interview, there's something in us that can't be duplicated. And a lot of people are spoiled in other cities. Like you talk about like people from New York getting to Detroit and being able to do the same thing. They don't always have that ability because it's just a different grind. If we have to get out, we have to be the best that we can be in every aspect to even get the same opportunities as someone from Los Angeles or someone from San Francisco, because they're from these big premier cities. They're from these well-known places. Detroit has a reputation. So it's like, if you see Detroit on a resume, you might end up having some issues. Like you like, they like, I couldn't hide the fact that I was Black, even though Kristina T. Wilson is a white name. On my resume, they saw Detroit, Michigan. They like, yep, we know where she's from. But it's that grit, that perseverance, that feeling that nobody can take this away from me because I earned it. I bust my butt, and you're not going to outwork me. That sounds like Eric Thomas, right? Where is he from?
Yep.
Detroit. See?
There it is.
So it's just like, you're not going to outwork me. So when I got to LA, I could fail the bar a million times. You're not gonna phase me. And then my mom, she's Detroiter too. She was like, you know what? You can always come back home. You know, I got this couch in the basement. You can come stay in if it don't work out in LA. I'm like, you know, dang on well, I'm not coming back home. Right. It's not gonna happen. So that to me is how being from Detroit prepared me for being in LA or Chicago or Bowling Green, Ohio. It's just that it gave me a confidence, because if I can handle being here, I can handle being anywhere. And nobody scares me really. Like,
I love that.
People think I'm like, y'all think y'all hard, y'all not hard, y'all don't know about it.
So I'm also curious though, because you touched on, well, we know you've got the 2 locations, right? But then your other endeavors, they're Detroit based, right?
Yes, my nonprofit is LA based.
Okay.
Because I'm here.
Right.
But one of the primary cities that will be, like, all of my stuff will touch Detroit. So it'll start in LA, and then we'll start like the goal is, and I know I'm speaking more on faith now. The goal is to be able to have a summer program where we actually like fly in athletes from all over the country for a 6-week program in LA. And the reason why I saw that as a great opportunity is because, I'm not gonna lie, I hadn't seen the ocean until I was 27 years old.
Right.
So it's like being a kid from Detroit, being able to fly, like I'm a good athlete, being able to fly and get educational knowledge, and then also have training facilities and be able to practice my sport while I'm studying in Malibu, or that's the goal, is to have it in Malibu. But to be able to see the world and see that glamour that comes with LA, I feel like that'll help someone from Detroit to be able to see, okay, I can do this, I can grind it, I can get it, because they can see the $100+ million homes. I had never seen that much of a house until I moved out here. Like, I was like, 120, what? Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Like, even though if you go out to Bloomfield Hills and stuff like that, you see these big $1 million mansions, but I'm like, it's a difference between that $1 million mansion and this LA one. Well, some of the LA ones, they look like they should cost less, but but having the having the tech company based in Michigan, my partner is still in Detroit. And so that was a big thing, is like, we want to target our high school. Well, me and him went to rival high schools. He went to Cass Tech.
Of course.
That's cool. So, and it's really funny. every member of my business team for that company is from Detroit.
Nice.
But one. We have one that's from Atlanta. Everyone else is from Detroit. All of us went to Bowling Green State University.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, I tell people going to college is not necessarily about the book knowledge that you receive, unless you like in medicine or something, you actually do have to learn science and stuff. But it's more about the network that you build, the people like that you come in contact with. Most of my starting off clients were people I came in contact with in college and in high school and then in law school. So now when I'm looking for resources on people I can hire, that, and I'm not going to be shy about it, I want people who look like me. So, and people from where I'm from. And so when you look at that and you're like, okay, who do I know that did this? Oh, she's good at finance. And the girl that I have, woman that I have as my CFO went to high school with me, went to college with me, and is now one of my closest friends here in Los Angeles. So of course, when I have a business opportunity and a proposition, I know who I'm going to call. And that's where networking is the biggest asset that you have, because now you know exactly who you're looking for, because that name's going to pop in because you know that person. And so that's why people are like, oh, it's unfair because I applied for this job. But did you go on LinkedIn? Did you do the research to get to know like who may be at that company that you went to school with? Because those are the people who may know somebody that is on the hiring committee that can vouch for you. So that when you go into an interview, they already have a smiling face and they know who you are. So it's like, now to be in a position to be able to hire people, of course, now I know like, oh, it's going to be the people that pop up in my head. Like even the people who we interview for positions with the company, I went to high school with, I went to college with. These are people who I know, because it's like, oh man, who's that software engineer? And it's really funny. One of our engineerings happens to be one of my cousins. I didn't choose it. My partner worked with her at Ford and through some design stuff and sent me her resume. And I'm like, that's my cousin. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah. And then we find out like how much you have in common, how many people, like Detroit is a little big city. So everybody seems to know or have what 2 degrees or 3 degrees separation from everybody.
If that.
So
probably one now.
One of my close friends that I met out here in LA, one of his best friends was my boss in college when I was looking for like finding an internship as a sports agent when I was in law school. He's from Detroit. That was my first job, was someone from Detroit.
Wow.
I went back home every summer. Instead of getting a nice legal job in Chicago, I went back to Detroit every summer and I worked. My cousin's a partner at a law firm. It's not, that saying is not what you know, is who you know. That's halfway correct. It's about who knows you. So you may know everything, but if they don't know who you are, then they're not going to think about you when a position comes up. So I always tell people, when you're networking and when you're building and trying to like get to know as many people as you can and get to know them in a genuine way. Because now, like when I told you I'm a member of Beazla, you know who the top suppliers of clients are? Older people from Beazla. They're like, hey, I can't take on this case. You want to be a part of this case? You're a young person. You can handle this. They send it to me. Or actual Beazla members have become my clients. They send me, like, I don't have to advertise my law firm. I literally get clients just because my clients are like, oh, Kristina did a good job. I'm going to tell her about everybody who needs a lawyer. I'm going to tell her about them. And sometimes I have to remind my clients, I don't do criminal law, divorces, child custody, not in my subset. But networking is probably what I would say 90% of what any entrepreneur does, because that's how you get clients. That's how you get a knowledge base. And that's how you hire people. And that's pretty much like if you don't learn anything else from me in this interview, it's like get to know people genuinely, because those are the people who you're going to meet coming back around in some form or fashion.
So let me ask you this, since you went there, the looking at the younger version of yourself, where did you start picking up this type of knowledge? Like, where'd you learn that networking was key? Where'd you learn that I'm going to go in this direction for business school, or I'm going to go to King High School? Who were your foundations and mentors in that space back then? 13, 12 area. How did you make these decisions?
So I decided I was going to be a lawyer when I was 8 years old. Me and my best friend both decided when we were 8. But I would say the reason why was my mom told me I could be the first Black female president of the United States.
Of course you did.
And instead of me thinking like normal kids, like, Mom, thank you. No, I really started researching what the president does. I was literally into my senior year of high school. I really thought that's what I wanted to do was political science, and that I was going to be president. Then everything happened with Bush and all that stuff and affirmative action. I was like, I am not built for politics. But it's just like, I was highly blessed. Like, my church family was a big foundation. They pushed me. But my grandparents and my mom, like, they took academics very seriously because they didn't get their education. So they're like, I knew what colleges I was going to apply to before I even knew you had to go to high school. Like, so it was just like, I thought I was going to be a diehard Michigan Wolverine, but when them financial aid checks didn't match, they're going to Bowling Green when they said full ride. I was like, all right. But it's just like, I kind of picked this stuff up. And as you can see, I'm long-winded and talk a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I used to get teased relentlessly for being able to talk. But like, I know that you guys typically ask about superpowers. I feel like that's my superpower. The one thing I got teased about the most is my superpower, because I can talk to anybody about anything at any time, because I'm well-versed in a lot of different things. But it's still like, I can have a conversation with the CEO and the janitor about the same thing and talk to them both equally. And so by me being a people person and always having the ability to communicate and always focusing on being able to enunciate my words, be articulate and educated in anything that I talk about, that has helped me tremendously. And everyone talking about, oh, you should be a lawyer. So it's just like, you combine those things. And then, like I said, being in the Academy of Finance and stuff, that's how I got introduced to business. I wasn't necessarily looking for it, but you start combining that. And then I was a student athlete. So I played basketball since I was 12. That cousin I mentioned, her father was my AAU basketball coach. And he had 6 daughters. All 6 of them played basketball. And then he got me to play because I was like 5'7", 5'8", and I was like 11, 12 years old. I was tall. So he was like, you're going to play basketball. I'm like, I don't know how to play basketball, but I did cheerleading and all that stuff, but I became a basketball player. And so I got to know a lot of people. I started traveling with AAU. So that was when I was exposed to going to Atlanta, Georgia and stuff like that, and understanding teamwork and understanding like people building. But I struggled a lot, I got teased a lot. I was tall, lanky, and skinny, so I got teased a lot. And I was a tomboy up and through high school. So a lot of people teased me for that. So it was just like, it took me a long time to gain self-confidence. But once I got that and you couldn't tell me anything about anything, that's when I felt like I could take over the world. But how I ultimately got to the space that I'm in now is once I decided sports management, because I combined my love of business, my love of law, and my athletic background. So that's how I chose sports management. And that was my senior year of high school. And it was going on the Black college tour, looking at like applications for college, and they ask you what your major is. And I saw sport management on the Hampton application, and then I started looking around, and it was a relatively new major at the time. Bowling Green happened to be the top school in the country in sports management at that time. So Bowling Green, Michigan had it, Michigan State. So every school that I applied to had it. So I'm like, all right, with sports management, I could become an agent. I thought I was going to be an agent. Got to law school and realized I didn't like athletes as much as I thought. And also, they made it seem that if you were a woman in this space, that you wouldn't be successful. So I just remember like being in one of my classes, and I went to a predominantly white law school, but they really, really cared about diversity. So I had a Black professor, and he was like, Kristina, you should become mayor of Detroit. I was like, I'm not built for those type of politics. But I was like, I would like to be commissioner in the NFL. And that's pretty much been my dream job since my probably second year of law school. And it still is. Like, as big of an entrepreneur as I am and lawyer and everything, I looked at like I tell my students when I do like mentorship, I'm like, first find your why. Why are you doing this? Because that will get you through those days where you like, I quit. I don't want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But and then my second assignment to them is write down everything you want to be when you grow up. And then research who has those jobs and what are the skills that they have that you need to know and learn. And I tell them to do that while they're in school so that they know what classes you need to take and things of that nature. So me, I did the same thing. I researched Roger Goodell, Adam Silver, Michelle Roberts. I went down the list of all of these executive directors and CEOs and commissioners of these leagues. I found out that most of them had law degrees. I found out most of them were practicing attorneys, and most of them had a business acumen. They understood how to negotiate contracts. They understood public relations and marketing. They understood business. They understood like how to relate to people. So I adapted my skill set. And everything I do as an attorney is preparing me to take over that $50 million a year job. And then and so at the end of the day, I've been preparing to be a CEO because that's what my dream was. So if that happens to be CEO of two companies that I founded myself and they end up paying me more than what Roger Goodell makes, I'm okay with that.
That'll work.
That'll work. But when they said $50 million a year, I was like, okay, I want his job, but it wasn't just for the money. I always wanted to have like a scholarship fund or a way to give back to someone who was like me, who had all the ambition in the world, but didn't have the means. My family loved me, but when it came to like education, they couldn't help me past like the third or fourth grade because it was like, it was out of their warehouse. They're like, I remember council meetings in the basement of us trying to like figure out how to do my homework. So it was just like, I understood that a lot of this stuff I was going to have to learn on my own, but my family was still one of the most supportive people behind me. They cheered me on every step of the way. They held me to a ridiculously high standard. If you bring home a B, they had some questions because my mom understood I had to have high grades and to be as good. Like I was in everything. When I tell you I was Miss King, I was getting up at 5 a.m., catching 2 or 3 buses to get from Joy Road in Livernois or 7 Mile Evergreen, depending on if I was at my grandparents' house. I had to catch the bus to the east side to get to King High School. And did it every day for 4 years because they wanted me to go to a better high school. They didn't want me at Henry Ford or Redford or McKenzie. They wanted me at King because that's where I tested into. They also knew that they had a great women's basketball program. So that was a way to get a scholarship. I ended up getting recruited from the basketball team to run track, and I ended up being very good at that. So my mom was looking for any and every scholarship opportunity because she couldn't afford to send me to school. It was that in the military. I thank God I finally got the scholarship because me in the military, I can't imagine. But it was just like God aligning stuff in my life, but also putting the right people at the right time. My mom was a single mother, but she had my grandparents to help raise me. And so that was my foundation. Of course, aunts and uncles and cousins, they had their input, but then putting the right mentors. Like I was that class suck up pretty much. So I talked to all the teachers and got to know them. I'm still friends on Facebook with half of my high school teachers. Like one of them lives in San Diego and she's taking me out to lunch. I meet with my coach's wife. He passed away, but I meet with her every time I go to Detroit. I'm still close with my high school coaches. As a matter of fact, my high school coaches were the reason I got my full ride scholarship. It turns out I had applied for the scholarship, been rejected for it, didn't even realize I was under reconsideration. They came to King without me even knowing. They interviewed all my teachers and my coaches. They vouched for me because I was a good student. They vouched for me without me even knowing, and I got reconsidered. I interviewed over the phone and they awarded me a full ride for 4 years. Everything paid for, including my meals. So it's like when people talk about being lame and getting to know your teachers as lame, no, your teachers, they're the ones that's going to go to bat for you. Just like your professors in school. There were times where I was Miss BG. I was involved in everything. There were times where I would have to miss class because of something, but my teachers knew who I was. They would vouch for me. They would give me extra tutor sessions. They would, if something was out of character, for me grade wise. They'll be like, hey, Kristina, you need to meet up with me. We need to get this correct. That's how I was able to graduate magna cum laude and graduate with a 3.8 grade point average. That got me into law school, because that LSAT did not get me into law school, but that's a whole different story. But it's just like having the right people go to bat for you, and them knowing your character and knowing that you're going to work hard, they will vouch for you every time. And even now to this day, they send me students, they send me clients, and we're talking about people who knew me 15 years ago or 20 years ago. They're like, I know Kristina as a person. I don't know what she does as a lawyer, but you should see her as a lawyer. She'll be good.
Wow.
And literally,
I love it.
like before my coach died, he actually gave me a review on LinkedIn. And that's the only review I have on my LinkedIn page. And it's from my high school coach, talking about how much he never saw someone work as hard as me. And that he thought that me being a lawyer for someone, I would be an excellent candidate because of my ethic, my work ethic. So, and that was before he passed away. So it was just like, who you are develops as, you know, once you get to age 12 and stuff. What you're doing at that age, a lot of people feel like that they can grow out of it. But that's just you laying the foundation for the adult that you'll be in the future. And it also develops the credibility that you get over the course of life. So I would say to my young self, I guess, going back to the original question, that young self would be like, the foundation that I had was mostly my family, and my church. They told me to be a good person, work hard, and you'll be successful. Now, they didn't tell me that being an adult, working hard had nothing to do with it. I had to learn the hard way that hard work doesn't always equal success, but it helps lay the foundation to being successful. So
that's good. That's good. I know I got one more question, and that is about this, what I call a myth, is work-life balance. So this whole idea of,
just
you know, you have this equation of work and, you know, equally amount of, you know, leisure, and, you know, what that balance is. And I think that's just a myth. I think it's just what you're focused on at that time, and what you're giving your energy to at that time is what you're doing, right? So where are you on that Richter scale? How do you like deal with relationships, and which it sounds like you're amazing at, and you're scheduling time for, but relationship with your family, friends, for yourself, you know, how are you taking care of yourself and being, you know, such an ultimate entrepreneur and all things to everyone at the same time? How are you doing all that?
That is a loaded question, because work-life balance only applies to 9 to 5 and career people. Work-life balance does not apply to entrepreneurship, because you feel like if you take a break, you should be doing something. The mental torture of being an entrepreneur is literally, I have lists of things for every company on my wall of stuff I need to do. But I've learned that my mental health, my well-being as a person, I cannot pour into other people if I have nothing to give. So I started prioritizing myself a lot more as of recently, especially when your finances allow you to, because I do know starting me, I was accepting any client I can because I got to make my business. Sure. Now I have money in business. I'm like, okay, you're causing me mental stress right now. I will recommend you to another attorney, but I personally am not going to deal with you today. But I hope you succeed. And I feel like that is growth, because it's like some of us will take anything because it's like we want to be successful, we want to grind, but we forget the mental part that goes into it. Even like with everything going on with COVID, people are like, why did you get the vaccine and all this stuff? You're such a conscious person. I'm like, if I'm down, my company's down. I like my odds that I won't be hospitalized and out for 2 weeks. So that's why I did it. And it's just like, it's just like, once you start prioritizing your mental health. So my relationships, one great thing is my boyfriend is just as much of an entrepreneur as I am. And so he's out there grinding. So it's a motivational factor that he grinds so I can grind. And so if I have to work, he doesn't be like, what you doing? Like, why are you doing this? He's usually doing something too. But he did force me for the first time in my life on my birthday to not take my laptop or my computer with me on vacation. I have never had a vacation until then. And even then, that phone was still like I even set up automatic messages. I told every client I am on vacation and still had to take a few calls during that time or emails. Because one thing about clients in entertainment, they're not used to saying no. So
Yeah.
I'm not available. But now it's like I put my office hours on my website. So if you start calling me outside of that, because I used to take calls any time of the day and night, I'm like, nope, I'm asleep. Whatever we can deal with, I will see you in the morning unless it's an absolute emergency. So now I'm putting up boundaries with my clients. I think that's helping. Even though they still know, like my family understands my mom's a grinder. Like my mom's a construction worker. She's a laborer in Michigan. So she's like, Kristina, get that money. So if a client calls when I'm on the phone with her, she's like, I'll talk to you later. She'll let me go because she understands, like, it took my mom a while to accept and be happy that I'm an entrepreneur. Because in her head, go get a job.
Right.
I heard her probably the first 4 or 5 years of my business, go get a job. But then I'm like, Mom, this is what my business is bringing in. This is what it is. She's like, quit them contract works and work just on your job by yourself. You don't need nothing else. I was like, ooh, your tone is changing now that I got all these clients and stuff now. But it's just like, I get it. Like the generation before us, even though some were entrepreneurs, that wasn't the message that was pushed to them. It was get a job, get benefits, get some security, you're fine. But what we as a millennial generation are finding out that there's no such thing as security, even in a job. So, and then we refuse to be miserable for 30 years and think that we can live life after that. So we might work for a few years, we might work in conjunction, but we got some dreams and stuff that we're going to go after regardless. And that's what I'm noticing is the big difference. And that helps with my work-life balance, is understand the bigger goal there. So I take time for myself. I take time in the evenings. I watch movies. I spend time with my boyfriend. I call my family. Now, one thing about being in LA in traffic, that gives you plenty of time to talk to people. Stuck on the road and you can't do anything. But it's just understanding, like I had close to mental breakdowns last year in 2020. My anxiety was crazy. And that's when I realized that nobody is more important to my company than I am. So I have to do what makes me feel right. So if that means going to therapy, if that means taking time for myself, I tell students that are studying for the bar, because I went through that crazy torture. You can't retain information if you aren't like, okay, like if you're overwhelmed, take a break. It's okay to take a nap. Those are things that I have to remind myself of daily. Like if I'm tired, go take a nap. The work will be there when you get up. It's not going anywhere. And a lot of the times we put superficial deadlines on ourselves that aren't necessarily there. Now, there are some absolute deadlines, but a lot of us are like, I need to do this by 30. It took me turning 30 to realize, yeah, that wasn't realistic. So now at the ripe age of 32, I'm doing everything that I want, but I understand that it's not all in my timing and that it's okay to take a break. So when I go home, yes, I will probably meet with some of my Michigan clients and my family's okay with that. But I told my clients ahead of time, I'm going home. So that means if y'all don't hear from me, your stuff will be done when I get back. You'll be all right. Like, and they're starting to understand that I'm human, but also surrounding myself with partners that can take the load off when they know that I'm busy. Like I said, my partner is an entrepreneur himself, but he also has a baby coming. He has a toddler. He has another child and a wife. So if he's like, Kristina, can we push this meeting back? Because I got to go pick up my kid from soccer. I'm like, okay, got you. Like having people around you that understands that it's not all about work as well. That is a beauty of being an entrepreneur. Because if you're at a 9-to-5 job, they're going to tell you have to be there. But when you're an entrepreneur, especially with partners, like one of my CMO just had a baby. So I understand he might have to dip out early. Like sometimes their kids pop up on the video. They're like, hey, and I'm like, hi guys, it's just like understanding that there's more to life than just work helps you to have a little bit more balance. Because it's like you only get one go around. That's it. You got one life. So yes, it's important for me to be successful. Yes, it's important for me to be able to sustain money and build. But if I spend all of my 20s, all of my 30s, all of my 40s, all of my 50s working, and then God forbid I don't make it to my 60s or 70s, I spent my whole life working. I feel that life is worth living.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to take time out to do that. So if that means hanging out with my friends at the beach, I set aside time to do that. If that means I'm mentally overwhelmed, I need some time to myself to go for a drive, I will, because at the end of the day, the work will always be there. There's never a time in your life that work will not be there. So take time.
That's good.
So Kristina, here's the thing. You said something that caught my attention earlier in the interview, right? So I believe in business, there's stages, right? You start out as a team of me and you're trying to figure it out, right? You're just trying to figure out how to survive, how to lean in, earn a buck. And then at some point, your money starts to catch up with your experience, right? And you go from that team of me to start thinking critically about how do I go from a team of me to a team of we?
Right.
And you're in the thralls of that right now, right? You're at the point now where you have consistent revenues. I know we probably don't have time to go into it, but you have core principles, values. You're very focused. You have like an agenda, right? But still, there's that challenge of, okay, how do I go from that team of me to a team of we? And then also you're at the next stage as well, where you're going from not just a team of we, but now you're starting to occupy almost like an executive space, right? You're not doing operations anymore. You're taking more executive roles in your business that you're operating. What systems do you have in place? What tools are you using? You know, what strategies are serving you as you're making these transitions? Because for a lot of entrepreneurs, number one, they don't even recognize when they're in a different stage of their business and their business is requiring something different of them. But then even once they realize, okay, I want things for my business, but my business also needs some things from me in order to continue to grow. You know, what tools, what strategies, is there an operating system or is there some type of management system that you're utilizing as you're making this transition?
I wish I could give you these different resources I have because I really don't have them. But
Okay.
it's kind of weird because it's like I remember when I first started my law firm, I had a PayPal account. That's how I received payments. Now I have a system called LawPay where I can charge credit cards directly on a monthly basis because I have payment plans for my clients. So that it charges them automatically. It sends invoices. It keeps my accounting for me. So I don't have to flex that little accounting muscle I have from college. So it's just like you start to learn your needs as you go along, but also going back to mentorship. I have people who have gone through what I've gone through in my life that tell me where I am in my life. Because I go to them like, hey, this ain't working anymore. I'm not happy right now. What's going on with this? And they're like, oh, I've been there. This is what you should look at. And that's how I got LawPay, was from a mentor. She was like, oh, I got this. Sent it to me in an email. And I got 50% off because it was a recommendation. Like, it's just like having the right people in your life. Like it's crazy. I am surrounded by entrepreneurs now and didn't really even notice it. And the funny part is they're not all just mentors. Some of my clients, some of them give me gems and stuff like that. And then also being their lawyer and hearing stuff that they go through, it helps me to be a better lawyer so that I can prepare someone else for it. Like learning about LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer and how they don't, certain things that like they don't do. Like I think one of the questions that you guys may ask other people was like, what were some things that warnings or something that like entrepreneurs do that they probably shouldn't do? And me as a lawyer is like just doing general contracts without reading them or understanding or making them tailored to you. That's why you need a business lawyer, right? But it's just like as a business lawyer, I can't think that I know everything. So my system is checking in with people who know more about stuff than I do. I am not afraid to ask questions. So if there is a better system out there, I go for it. I try to read books, not just for me being a better business person, but also being a better human being overall. Because it's like, okay, here's the 4 agreements. I feel like I understand this. So like now I feel better as a human being. That makes me a better business person. Or like I do business affirmations and things like that. I follow the right people on Instagram. But I do know some people sell you a dream on Instagram that isn't realistic. But still, like I used to do the clubhouse things and listen to different people. Like I find mentorship in things and people. And then I also learned how to double check and verify advice as well. Because during the pandemic, everybody was like, go out there and start an LLC. I'm like, that's not how this goes. Like, you might want to do some background research.
Right.
But I think that's the lawyer in me, is to always verify and double check. So, and it's just weird because, like you said, I'm still transitioning from one phase to the next. And it's weird because I'm, like you said, I'm in 2 phases at one time, coming from one phase. So it's like, it's really weird because when I kind of understand how people like, they have a goal and a dream and then it launches and then they blow up and they didn't realize it. They weren't fully prepared for it because they're like, dang, I thought this would take a lot longer than it did. So for me, it's just always making sure that I'm prepared because I have big dreams and big goals. But now I'm finally at the point where I talk to my partner and we secure most of our employees on equity so far because we ain't got no money. But it's like we have 2-year deals and we're like, okay, so we realistically need to have salary for them by the time we get to this point because we don't want to give up any more equity. So we're looking at, okay, how much does an engineer typically get paid? How much does a CFO and all these people at a certain type of company? That's when it hit me. And I literally almost hyperventilated that I need to raise over $1 million in the next 2 years. And that's not just for operational costs. That's just payroll. And I'm like, what? Because growing up as a kid, you're like $1 million. Oh my God, that's the goal. Like, but that's realistically just payroll for 1 year. So I'm like, a $10 million company is not far out of reach. It's not astronomical. This is like, okay. And that's when I think it hit me, that transition. Like there's going to be something in your career that's going to, you'd be like, oh, might need to get on that. And that for me was that moment is like, once I realized that for the tech company, then it hit me that I'm gonna need that for a nonprofit. And that now they have these funds that I can legitimately get these things. I can get investors. Like millions of dollars is not a far-fetched idea for me. Because I remember getting the 6 figures was the goal. As a kid, you used to think 100,000 a year, that's the goal. And then as an adult, you realize 100,000 a year, especially in LA, not that much. So once I hit 6 figures for the first time, which would have been 2020, but there was some other stuff that happened, some good write-offs and stuff that took that figure down. But it's like, when you look at 6 figures and I'm like, okay, I reached that goal, then you got to reevaluate and reassess what is the next goals. And once you do that, that helps you it to click that you can't do things on $100,000 level that you need to do on $1 million level.
Say that again. Say that again. For the people in the back row, say that again.
People in the back row, you can't do things on $100,000 level that you need to do to get to $1 million. And you can't do things on $1 million level to get to a tens of $1 million level. Like every level is going to take a leveling up. So for me, I'm even just looking at the years that I've worked, I'm like, I'm not a freshman attorney anymore. I'm a boss now. So what does that mean? And what does that translate to? And it even meant raising my prices. Like a lot of people don't understand that's a part of that transition too. You're not about to pay $200 an hour for a senior attorney. Now it's like $250, $300, and then also understanding how much people can afford and things of that nature. But yeah, I've gone through all of this in the last probably year or so. understanding my worth, my value, what that looks like, researching the market and what that is, how to sources of this, becoming a better attorney, becoming a better business person. That means reading more books instead of watching more TV, then I'm fine with that. If that means watching YouTube videos, I used to watch all of Eric Thomas's stuff. I had it going on while I'm working. I'm just listening. And I've learned, so when you say tools, there is no limitation to what tools that you can use. You can use any. I would say having mentors that's been through what you've been through is probably the number one tool I would say that you need. Someone who understands your struggle in your industry, but also just not being afraid, like to just learn. Is everything's a learning experience, and like even to this day, I'm still learning. Like my boyfriend is SAG, and he's also a client of mine. So it's like, all right, SAG prices go up. This is what I need to look for from my SAG clients. Like,
Yep.
now I have someone in that realm that I need to cater to. If I want to get into cannabis, which I do, I have a client that's a musician. He's in cannabis. So now it's like, okay, a lot of athletes are getting into this space, a lot of entertainers. That's going to be the next move. Funny thing happened. I went to a conference. I go to conferences. That is also a very big tool. Go to conferences in your industry. They teach you a whole bunch of stuff. And join memberships. Like lawyers, they have all the bar associations. You definitely want to do that. If you business, medicine, all of it, join all the organizations. And they're tax deductible if you go to their conferences. So that's fun. But we had a mid-year conference, virtual conference on NFTs. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. I don't think I'll ever need this, but it's cool. And lo and behold, less than a week later, I had a client call me and say, I want to work on NFTs for my business. And I'm like, oh, I took the coursework on it. I know where to start. So it's just like being open to new opportunities, understanding the waves that are about to happen in your industry, and then just constantly being willing to learn. Those are the tools. And that can come from anywhere. Videos, going back to VHSs if you need to. And then also just trying to make your business as efficient as possible. So if that means getting an invoice system, having an A1 tax person. Taxes are big. So you need a business lawyer and a tax person before you start any business. Like those need to be your go-tos because they will tell you what's legal and what's not so that you don't have to deal with the IRS or anything like that. But yeah, just having the right people in your circle, that to me has been how I've transitioned throughout my career and knowing when I need to raise my prices and everything. Even my competitors, I work with other lawyers. They like, this is what I charge. I'm like, all right, maybe I should go raise my prices a little bit. So
Kristina, we could bring you back on 3 different areas. Like,
yeah, I am down for it.
Because Rochelle about to do what she does best.
I know.
Keep us on time and organized. But I mean, look, this raising money. You are unbelievably thorough. Like I was listening to you and I knew you had read the questions. And I knew you had gone online and peeked at what we had been doing. And that's skill trade for real.
Yeah, and she knew how to bring them up right at the right time.
Exactly.
You know, this question that you guys asked about superpowers. Yeah, so my superpower is like what?
Yeah, I mean, just flawless. I mean, and
I was like,
and we do have to bring you back because I know core values, core focus, these congruencies that you have are like, people got to hear this. So, I mean, look, without saying for Rochelle, he just like mutes me and shuts everything down. You coming back. You coming back.
I'm down. Bring me back as much. Like I have a wealth of information. Like I said, if I can help people not go through the same stuff I went through or know what to do when they get to those points, I'm all for it. So if you guys want to bring me back, I have no problem.
Well, in a very lawyer way, is our closing statements now, right? So if you can narrow down even though you gave us so many, what is one and you kind of did, you did say if there's one thing you can take away, but if there's one very important lesson that you want to leave our listening audience with who've listened with us this whole time regarding entrepreneurship, what would that be?
Don't go into entrepreneurship lightly. Like, even though you may have a dream and you have these things that you want to do, treat it as important as the dream that you wanted. So if you want a multi-million-dollar company, you need to put in the work and the research to get to that point. Don't just think that it's going to happen. And also know that this is not a straight line race. This ain't a 100-meter dash. You're not going straight through. This is one of them cross-country, dirt road, marathon type situations. Mm-hmm. You're going to have days that you feel like your business is thriving and days that you like, damn, I need to go get a job. Like, so understand that it may take longer than you thought, but is it worth it? And do you have a dream that really can get to where you want to go? Then put in the work to get it there. And that's my advice.
Amazing. So even though we will have you back, absolutely. In the meantime, if people want to reach out to you, contact you, or learn more about whether it be, what you have to offer within your practice or the tech endeavors, the nonprofit, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
So I'm on Instagram at KT Wilson Law, Facebook, Kristina T. Wilson. My website is www.ktwilsonlaw.com. We will be unveiling 2 new websites for the other businesses. UR Prospects, so it's urpsports.com. And then Dual Threat Preparatory Academy, I think it is www.dualthreat.org or dualthreatprep.org. So you can find me anywhere. I'm there.
All over.
But yeah. And I look forward to joining you guys again. This was fun. I had a great time. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Kristina. We really appreciate it. For those of you listening, we're going to put those links below here in the show notes so that you can learn more about what, we've talked about today. And we will, as a group, be talking more about this inside our Next Up Social After Show group. We invite everyone watching to join us there. The link is also in the description, or you can head to Facebook, go to our Next Up Social page, click community. We're happy to have you inside. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button here on YouTube or visit our website, nextoppsocial.com. And if you got a lot like we did out of today's episode with Kristina, we encourage you heavily to share it with someone else who can gain value from that as well. So thank you again, Kristina. We loved having you, and we will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kristina. Good luck with everything.